In this packed episode of Alison McWhinnie broadcast with Clive Bonny, we have several calls to action. First of all, far too many men die from prostate cancer every year, yet so much can be done to prevent this if the illness is caught early enough. Men, please ensure you get your test done. Wives, girlfriends, sisters, daughters, please ensure the men in your life get their tests done. We're losing far too many of them to prostate cancer. In this episode, we also touch on suicide and suicide prevention and the importance of being trained in how to help somebody who might be having suicidal thoughts. We also talk about the importance of supporting and promoting entrepreneurs and innovators in our society because they can bring so much value. We also touch on how ARC devices can help the body to heal. If you don't know what ARC is, listen to the podcast and you'll find out. We talk about the importance of giving students work experience if you run a business, and also the importance of being active in your local community, as well as the importance of animals in our lives. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to Alison McWhinnie podcast, where we have conversations about business and wellbeing success. And today I'm thrilled to be chatting with none other than Clive Bonny, CMC FRSA. Now, to give you a potted background on Clive, and it does have to be potted because this man has achieved so much in his working career and also helping the community that we'd probably be here for a couple of years if I went through everything this man has done. So I will today give you the potted version, but you'll get the gist from this. So Clive set up his own business in 1990 in Sussex, Strategic Management Partners. Among his many hats, Clive is a mentor, coach and author. He's won numerous awards, including being voted Entrepreneur of the Year 2 years ago. He's member of an all-party parliamentary group in the House of Lords, advising on policy development. As well as being a highly successful businessman, Clive has been recognised by the Sussex Chamber of Commerce and appointed as one of their ambassadors for his outstanding commitment to social value and community engagement. His appointment reflects the Chamber's commitment to promoting responsible business practices and supporting enterprises that drive positive change. Clive's extensive experience in mentoring, sustainability and inclusive growth aligns with the Chamber's values and its mission to foster a thriving, socially responsible business community across Sussex. He's recognised for excellence in volunteering and pro bono support for social value across the community. The Organisation for Responsible Businesses, a national accreditation not-for-profit body, assessed Strategic Management Partners as an exemplar of the highest standards of social value. These activities included providing work experience for students, supporting local campaigns to save libraries from closure, improving employability skills with free online learning, promoting equal opportunities for female entrepreneurs, supporting wellness research between human and animal health, advising charities on donation strategy, reporting on local road safety measures, suicide risks, and environmental light pollution, as well as supporting local arts, nature, cultural heritage, tourism, and photography groups. I'm exhausted just thinking about all that. I think I need a nap now. In today's podcast, we will be talking as well about prostate cancer, Clive's community support and wellness work, his involvement in animal projects in particular, including supporting wellness research between human and animal health. Clive, a very warm welcome indeed to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Alison. But I must emphasize, I'm just a normal human being like everybody else too.
I'd like to start off by talking about some really interesting inventions that you've been involved with. One is about repairing the body during sleep. Would you like to fill us in on that?
Well, thank you. Because I've been personally very interested in health and well-being for many years, I'm particularly interested in supporting and helping people who have innovative products and services in that wonderful community. And I happened to start work some years ago with an animal medical innovator. They were at the time just providing horses with a wearable repair kit for horses that were damaged either through running or jumping or racing or any other processes. And it struck me that there's not a lot of difference between the animal kingdom and the human kingdom in terms of biology. And they've been extremely successful in providing this wearable device. It's only a small device that wraps around the leg at the bottom and is worn just for a few hours for horses to repair damaged cells. And it works on a systemic basis. That means if you put it on any part of the body, then the repairing can take place anywhere else in the body where cellular damage has occurred. It's quite interesting because it stimulates what we call in health terms the ATP molecule in each cell, because every cell has got its own battery, so to speak. And if you stimulate the energy in damaged cells where there are damaged batteries, you can restore the cellular health much more quickly. And from working with them, I could see that they were restoring animal health about 4 to 5 times more quickly than would take a normal process. So I thought, well, I wonder if it works on people. And coincidentally, I happened to discover I had a personal health challenge. I was attending my local hospital in Lewes for a standard repair to a hernia. And they said, Mr. Bonney, we think you need to go immediately to A&E because your pulse is 30 and it should be 65. And you are at a very high risk of either a severe stroke or death. I think they put it more carefully than that, by the way. But that was the gist of their communication. And I was actually suffering, without knowing it, from something called atrial fibrillation, also known as AF.
My mother had that.
It's a very common problem, actually. It's often called sudden death syndrome because it's very difficult to diagnose. And it was pure coincidence that I was on the medical slab waiting for another operation when they found that I had this problem. So I went to hospital. They couldn't inject me with the standard blood thinners because my blood was too coagulated. So I was immediately rushed to ICU, it's intensive care unit, where I spent 10 days with a nurse 24/7 by my bed, checking that my heart was still going. And indeed, my heart was stopping for 10 seconds every 60 seconds,
Wow.
which was a little bit disturbing for me. But I did manage to take a photograph of that happening at the time, which I can now show to you. So there's me on the hospital bed, and I took a selfie of the screen above me showing my heart was failing. And so I was at a serious risk of dying. Fortunately, I came through it. And after going through that experience and working with this small enterprise that provided this wearable device, I thought, well, why not put it on me and see what happens? And I did discover, having had a couple of additional operations, that it improved my health remarkably. It accelerated tissue repair. And as a result of that, I took up rollerblading along the south coast from where I live, Rottingdean to Brighton. And the increase in physical activity alongside with putting this wearable device on my leg, on my ankle, just overnight, resulted in me suffering much less problems from AF. And here I am, 15 years later, still very active and enjoying life enormously. So
it's wonderful.
It's an interesting story, but the point I'm making here is that there are an awful lot of other innovators and entrepreneurs in the health market who have got wonderful products and services that aren't always taken up by the National Health Service, but they do need support. This particular one, without advertising, is called Arc for Health. And it's available for people online for £250. It's this kind of innovation that the UK is wonderful at doing, but we're not so good at actually sharing it. So a small example, but if I can perhaps give you another example, I'm a big charity supporter, and one of the charities I support is called Grassroots in Brighton. They're a suicide prevention charity. They were struggling to market their services because they provide training in observation and in dealing with potential suicides. Simply because I had a younger brother some years ago who died through his own hands, regrettably, I thought I needed some training in this area. So I became a trained suicide prevention advisor and supporter. But that led me into working with the NHS as part of their panel for health and wellbeing across Sussex. And the NHS asked me to consider people for health and safety awards. I put forward Grassroots, and they subsequently, with their product, which is a free mobile app which people can download to understand how to deal with someone who may be nearby considering suicide. And it provides them with a step-by-step guide on what to do under those circumstances. So I promoted the app to the NHS, and they ended up winning an award for the best health and safety product for that year. And indeed, the same happened to the Arc Equine, the Arc for Health product that came into the awards for best innovation across the UK. So a couple of examples, but let's look for these opportunities to promote these entrepreneurs and innovators, because it's otherwise very difficult for them to reach the marketplace.
That the suicide app that you mentioned is so important. So, as you know, I'm a fully trained healer.
Yes.
And as part of that journey, we were trained on how to deal with someone if they came in for healing and were expressing suicidal thoughts. But there are two scenarios that you can be faced with. They can be that situation where someone comes in and is talking about it. Or I had a situation when I was working with another employer, a retailer, where a lady had managed to get up onto our roof and was standing at the edge of the roof. And as a manager, I had to go up and deal with her until police arrived. I was completely out of my depth. I managed to talk her back. I did manage to talk her back, but I'd had no training whatsoever. And I was very much making it up as I went along. And I found the training that we did when I became a healer so useful, and tips that you can use to help that person. And this is a subject I'm actually thinking of covering in a future podcast as well, because I think it's so important we talk about it.
Yes.
And help prevent many more suicides as well.
Coincidentally, on the news this morning, there is a gentleman called Ben who lost his younger brother Sam through suicide, who launched a website called Reasons to Live. And that's invited and has obtained more than 250,000 letters from the public saying this is why you should stay alive.
Absolutely.
It's really, really terribly important. In Brighton, where I live, we have a much higher suicide rate than the national figures, simply because we have a lot of people coming here who remain homeless and are very isolated. And where I live on the top of a cliff in Rottingdean, we do unfortunately see people, I see people on the wrong side of the fence, and I do what I can whenever that happens to go out and to talk them down, because it does happen near where I live as well. The cliff edges are regrettably a hotspot for this particular problem. So massive problem nationally and internationally, and I do wish more people would take active, proactive training, such as you and I have done too.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I just pick you up on the atrial fibrillation as well? Quite often, one of the treatments for atrial fibrillation is warfarin.
Yes.
And that was what my mum was put on. One thing that I found out by having to dial 999 is that if you have a flu virus and you're on warfarin, that can affect your blood clotting rate.
Yes.
And it's good to get, if you've had flu, it's good to get your tests brought forward. So in her case, she had a nosebleed that I could not stop. So that resulted in a 999 dash to A&E, and her INR was 9, which is way too high, caused by the flu virus.
Yeah.
So I just throw that one in there. So that's something that I learned from experience.
A good share, a good shout, Alison. Well
done. On the subject of health, you've also survived prostate cancer.
Yes.
You've very kindly agreed to talk about this. And our aim in bringing this up in this podcast is if we can help men around this subject, then that will be an absolute win. And so that is our intention in talking about this. So Clive, would you tell us about your journey and your key learning points?
Yeah. About 4 years ago, I found that I was getting up to pee too often at night, 3 or 4 times. And so I asked for a blood test, what they call a PSA test. That's prostate specific antigen in medical terms. PSA test is the one. It's a simple blood test, takes 2 minutes. And what they're looking for is a particular sign of potential cancer growth in the prostate, which lives just beneath the bladder. When I was initially tested, the number was 5, which is on the borderline of acceptability. And so I was put on what they call a watching program, which means that every 6 months I had a PSA test to check if the numbers were increasing. And over the next 3 years, my numbers went up from 5 to 7 to 8 to 9 to 10, 12, 15, and finally ended up a year ago at 18, which means there is a very high risk of cancer. That then resulted in me receiving a biopsy, where they take small samples, very small samples, through a small needle. It's not a big operation. It's done without you needing a hospital stay overnight. But it does actually give the medics the opportunity to actually examine specifically different areas of the prostate to find if there is a cancer growing and where it is. So it's a really important part of the journey. So they discovered that I did have cancer. They gave me the results in, again, number terms. So there's something called the Gleason test, which gives you numbers related to the rate of growth and the severity of the cancer. In my case, my numbers were 4 plus 3, which means that I did have cancer. It wasn't an accelerated growth cancer, so it was treatable and highly likely to be just retained within the prostate gland. So they then said, well, here are your options. You can continue to live with this. You're not at an immediate risk. Or you can take various ways of minimizing the risk. And those ways can include radiotherapy, chemotherapy, hormone therapy, or they can remove the prostate. And in my opinion, the safest, the lowest risk for my long-term health was to do the latter, to remove the prostate. That's called a prostatectomy. So I opted for that. They then put me on the waiting list. And whilst I was on the waiting list, I was also waiting for an eye operation. And coincidentally, the day before my eye operation, the hospital rang me up saying, well, we've got a sudden cancellation for a removal of the prostate. Would you like to come in tomorrow, Clive? So I deferred my eye operation and said, yes, please. I'd be delighted to do that. My wife and eldest son drove me to the hospital in Guildford, where they introduced me to the surgeon, who happened to be called Da Vinci. And he was a robot. He had several arms. He was 10 feet. He was 10 feet tall. He was 4 feet wide. And so they rolled me in underneath the watchful eye of the robot, put me to sleep, and I woke up 6 hours later.
Goodness.
They said initially I'd be asleep for 2 hours, but they discovered that I had 4 times more tissue to remove than they had anticipated, because I had an enlarged prostate, which actually had been causing my regular peeing at night, because it compresses the tube which carries the urine. So that was a bit of a surprise, but they said that they were very confident they removed everything because there was no sign of cancer on the outside of the prostate gland. But they did say I'd need another test 3 months later, another PSA test, which I had. And I'm pleased to say that that PSA test showed 0 issues.
Wonderful.
For ongoing purposes. I'm still going to get the PSA tests on a regular 6-monthly and then annual basis. But the point of the story is that you really do need to take seriously small matters such as peeing too often at night, which can actually be symptoms of a much bigger problem. And often men think, well, this is just part of the aging process. It's simple and quick and fast to check. Men should be, in my opinion, be given a PSA test for the over 60s on an automatic basis. This doesn't happen, however, so you have to ask for it. And to men's partners and wives and sisters and daughters, please take an active interest and push the man into doing something about this if they are talking about the simple symptom of peeing too often at night. So that's the story in a nutshell. I've written up about it. I've put it in my local newspapers, and I've been invited to a local golf club now to talk about it to golf club members who are primarily men over the age of 60 who are most subject to this problem, because the stark statistic is that 1 in 8 men in the UK will get prostate cancer, and out of the 1 in 8, 1 in 4 will die. That's a very high fatality rate, simply because they are not looking at this quickly enough and not getting it diagnosed and not getting it treated early. I've lost friends through prostate cancer, so I do emphasize this needs action by not just men, but by the women around them too.
A very important call to action for us all. Yes. You've also met Professor Noel Fitzpatrick, haven't you?
I have.
With Human Animal Trust. Tell us all about that, how it came about and your involvement in this area.
Well, I've always been interested and a keen fan of animals since my childhood days, when my father actually had a menagerie of animals at home in Blackpool, where we were brought up. He had snakes, large animals such as caiman, which is a South American alligator, guinea pigs, rare birds. He had an aviary in the garden, all sorts of funny creatures besides cats and dogs, of course. And he happened to be a friend of Gerald Durrell. They were at Cambridge University together a long, long time ago. And Gerald Durrell subsequently set up a rare species conservation zoo in Jersey, of which my father became subsequently a trustee. So that's the background. I was always been interested in animal welfare. And over the years, me and my wife, we are 50 years married this year, by the way. We've always cared for small creatures, and we've in fact managed to gather a hunt of up to 7 dogs in the family at any one stage. We currently have 4 dogs. They're all Jack Russell Terriers, aged 16, 15, 14, and 2 years old. And 3 of them have come from a charity called Rasted, who is a pet care and animal charity in Sussex. So that's the background. I happened to meet Noel Fitzpatrick because I'm also an author of books, and he was launching his own book called Humanimal. That's a mix between humans and animals, because the book and the charity trust which he set up, it's called the Humanimal Hub, is an online forum, and it's a really vital interactive space which is free for anyone to join and use, where people and particularly leading minds in human and animal medicine can meet, collaborate, initiate, and share knowledge and research between the animal kingdom and the human kingdom. Vets are more qualified than human doctors, by the way. So they have to go through the process of learning about the human body as well as about the animal bodies. But the problem is that often the research bodies between these two organizations have not been sharing enough information. And because animal lifetimes are more accelerated than human beings, vets know usually a lot more about biology than human doctors do, because they see 4 or 5 times more of it on an accelerated basis. So the purpose of the charity and the trust is to share knowledge between the animal kingdom and the human kingdom to improve human health as well. You know, something like cancers, for example, which can take years to develop in humans, often develop much more quickly in animals, pets, particularly dogs and cats. So Noel is known as the TV super vet. He's regularly been on TV because he also invents medical instruments to help animal welfare. But that's the background. I sat down with him at the launch of his book. We had a good chat. I gave his book to my grandchildren to read as well, because it's a great fun book too for children. And I'm a big supporter of his trust as well.
No, he does a lot of important work, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Is there anything more you want to say about the Raceseed Centre?
Well, it's been going for about 50 years now. They're so important because they rely almost entirely on personal donations and trusts. They have very little government-related support because of the work they do just on animals, not on people. But let's face it, animals are important and integral part to human life as well. When we look after animals, we're looking after fellow creatures. We're improving our understanding, our tolerance, our empathy skills.
And these are sentient creatures.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. So in my lifetime with Sue, my wife, our animals have given us an enormous amount of additional skills in tolerance, in empathy, in dealing with small creatures that have gone through some pretty harsh initial social realities before they go to a place called Rasted, which then requires some social restoration, some socializing. It's not a problem for us, but if you put goodness, if you put time into animals, they will repay it massively. They will give unconditional.
Yeah, I think people also underestimate how intelligent animals are as well, and how much they observe of us and know exactly what we're up to. Obviously can't talk about it, but when I don't have any pets myself, but when I look at friends, dogs, for example, there are some very clever animals there.
Well, they are telepathic. And indeed, animals are extremely good at diagnosing human illnesses as well. We've just started to understand that part of their kingdom. So they're an essential part of human life, and we need more people to be treating animals with respect, with care and tenderness that they deserve.
I could not agree more with you there. You've done an awful lot of community work, an awful lot. Why do you feel it's so important for businesses to get involved in community work?
Well, if I can put it simply, we just cannot live safe and healthy lives without safe and healthy communities around us. And there are so many opportunities to support others. So taking just a few small steps and giving our time doesn't require giving money, but giving our time to help other charity organizations, to help local schools, to help local libraries, to help volunteer groups in the arts, in the social sciences, or indeed, just like my younger son, Tom, he's part of something called the befriending community. So he takes time out of his busy day. He's a full-time worker in construction sector. And in the evenings and weekends, he will visit elderly, isolated people who need someone to talk to.
Mm.
And it's that kind of activity that inspires me to do what I do, because there are other people doing lots of good things, and let's copy that. Let's replicate it.
Yeah.
We can all do something.
Yeah. For businesses who now feel inspired to do something, how do they start? Where's your advice?
The great news is, in my avid networking, some years ago, 15 years ago, I came across an organization called the Organization for Responsible Businesses, also known as ORB, O-R-B. And they introduced me to what we call responsible business standards. Now, responsible business standards means that you've got an opportunity to benchmark yourself, assess yourself, diagnose yourself against good practice for running an enterprise, a business of any kind, whether or not it's limited or just you as a sole director or proprietor like me. And it covers, it asks the question, are you doing enough for the local environment in terms of environmental conservation? So, for example, as a result of me testing myself against that, I've installed water conservation taps. I've installed additional heating and energy management controls. And indeed, I became a co-founder of a local environmental charity where I live in Rottingdean on Beacon Hill, which subsequently enabled me to take a lot of space away from a local pitch and putt golf course, which wasn't used by the local community, and convert it into a nature reserve for dog walkers.
Lovely.
So, the impact of just doing that has encouraged hundreds of people to be able to walk over a hill when they couldn't walk on a golf course previously, and to become a community hub, because dog walkers do like to chat with other dog walkers as well. But also the charity supports environmental education. It's converted the small golf cabin into a small education center. And it's even used that golf cabin for health and well-being advice and support. So there's, it's really important to look at these standards and ask yourself, what can you do as an individual? We call these standards also something called ESG. That stands for environmental, social, governance. The environmental side means that you can improve your cost savings for energy and stuff like that. But social means that it's asking you questions. What more can you do within your local community, which brings to life the vulnerable communities, the people who need more help than others, who aren't necessarily in corporate profit-making entities, but are still adding real value. And if I can give you perhaps a most recent example, I've been supporting the prevention of closure of our local library. The council, like many councils across the UK, is cash strapped. It's got a big debt. It's got to pay off its debt. and it decided a year ago to close 3 local libraries, including my own local library in Rottingdean. So I connected with the local school community and local social activists, as I can call them, and we set up a campaign, both online and also visibly demonstrating outside the town halls to save the libraries. That resulted, fortunately, in saving our local library, which otherwise would have been shut and would have prevented 29,000 users every year from using it.
Goodness.
The justification in the council was to save £25,000 a year, which is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So there's an example. Without that social activist hat on, which was really part of this ORB program, I probably wouldn't have taken this problem as seriously as I did. But I'm really pleased that I got involved with the community support, and we have saved. It's not just a library, but it's a social hub. It's an education centre for young people. It helps them to read. And when we've got more readers, we've got more employability. So we're taking people off welfare and into economic support. Lots of things come out of being socially aware. And therefore, this standard is really quite interesting to use as a way of prompting you to do something extra.
I agree with you. It is so important. Where I lived back in the day, we used to have an amazing Lido. And that was the go-to place from spring until autumn. Loads of youngsters used to spend their summer holidays in this Lido. It was safe. People had a lot of fun, and eventually it got closed. And my perception is we've got a lot more youngsters hanging around on the streets, not sure what to do. Whereas this Lido just provided an opportunity to get exercise, to have fun in a way that didn't cause any crimes or anything like that. It was an outlet, and it's sorely missed in this community.
Yeah.
Sorely.
May I just mention one more thing, which is something everyone can do, and that is be active in your local school community. So what I've done, I've gone out to my local schools. I've as a what we call a fellow of something called the RSA, that's the Royal Society of Arts. I managed to squeeze out a few £1,000s from them to support a project which enabled primary and secondary school children across Sussex. I ended up with 500 children in this project, bringing to school clothing which they would otherwise have thrown out, and then remaking and redesigning and remodeling that clothing into other textile products. For example, converting dresses into eiderdowns for the homeless. And then selling those at the local arts centres or marketplaces. So this is teaching them the skills of business, the skills of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
It's eco-friendly. It's removing waste.
Yes.
You know, textile
it ticks
waste.
a lot of boxes in one go, doesn't it?
Yeah. So all I was doing was coordinating and facilitating this. I let the teachers get on with it once we'd started the program in each school. We had about a dozen schools involved. But anyone can do this. If they've got an idea, then run with it. See if you can get some support from other charitable organizations, larger ones, because often the larger charities give charity money to the smaller ones, by the way. And you can end up with doing lots of good things. The other thing I would emphasize is that for business people, for people like me who are running small enterprises, please tap in to your local university graduates, because they offer graduates for work experience free of charge. Often they will give you money to employ them over the summer months for work experience. In my case, I've employed 10 of my local university graduates from Brighton Uni and Sussex Uni over the last 15 years, over the summer months. They've given me somewhere between £1,500 and £2,000 to pay them, £3,000 to pay them, which is a nice sum. So it gives the student an incentive and compensation. But they've also worked with me on helping market my business. effectively free of charge. I've obviously provided them with some coaching, some mentoring, but they need this skill. They need this experience in order to get good jobs in the marketplace. And after leaving me in the summer, they've left with a wonderful learning log, wonderful testimonies from myself and my clients. And that's accelerated them into getting good, decent, well-paid jobs in the marketplace. So please, anyone listening who's running a business or in a business, get in graduates for internships or apprenticeships into that business. Won't cost you much, but it makes a lot of difference to their lives in the long term.
Absolutely. I was at an event this week where people studying at my local university had the opportunity to enter a Bright Ideas competition. And I was one of the judges in the early stages of that competition. And we saw the results this week. And some of the things that these students were coming up with were just amazing. And you think, my goodness, there's so much talent in this room that would benefit society.
Yes.
So much just emerging, just bubbling there.
Yeah, yeah. I keep in touch with a lot of them online still, after all these years, offering any further advice and support to help their career development. And that really gives me a thrill. It really does.
Yeah. Well, it's been wonderful chatting with you this morning, Clive. How can people get in contact with you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, so look up Clive Bonny, Bonny on LinkedIn. There's only one of me, which is fantastic. I'm called Clive, by the way, because I live on the top of a cliff. And if you look in the dictionary, Clive means cliff top dweller.
Oh, goodness, I didn't know that.
Yep. Or if you're not on LinkedIn, then my website is www.consult-smp, Sugar Mary Peter, smp.com. And you'll see under the news section lots of examples of the interesting activities and stories, and also some of my ORB, my ESG activities as well. So please look at that website, find a bit of inspiration if you can from it. Talk to me if you want to, because I'm contactable on email as well. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Clive.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, and good luck to everyone out there to go volunteering like crazy.
There we go now. And a final call to action. Please subscribe to this channel to help me to help this channel grow. Thank you.